Hi, this video, we're going to introduce the spanning tree protocol. Okay, so spanning tree. Spanning tree is a IEEE standard 802.1d. It's a layer 2 loop prevention protocol. So spanning tree works with layer 2 switches, Ethernet switches. And if we had these were all switches here, right? So basically, if we have redundancy in our layer 2 Ethernet network, which can be a good thing, and we'll talk more about that in upcoming videos here. But spanning tree is a loop prevention protocol. So what it does is it has the switches communicate with each other to discover physical loops in the network. And then the algorithm creates a loop-free logical topology. So there's only one path from one switch to any other switch in the network. Okay, so one thing that we should make clear here is that you're going to see the term bridge a lot when talking about spanning tree. A bridge nowadays means the same thing as a Ethernet switch. We used to have two types of bridges back in the old days, transparent bridges that were used to connect two local area networks of the, of the same technology, like Ethernet to Ethernet. So now we call that just a switch, right? But we also had things called translation bridges, and those were to connect local area networks of different technologies or different protocols, like Ethernet to token ring. So the term bridge, you're going to see used interchangeably with the word switch now, especially when it refers to spanning tree. So when I say bridge, I mean, think of layer 2 Ethernet switch. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what this looks like. So what spanning tree does is it ensures that there's only one active path to every destination. And it does this by executing an algorithm called the spanning tree algorithm. So the first thing that spanning tree algorithm does, and we're going to see this in more detail later, is it elects a reference point called a root bridge. So one bridge that acts as the root. Then all other bridges, switches, will determine their best path to that root bridge. And then where we have multiple paths existing to the root bridge, like this path right here, so which way would a Ethernet frame go? It's going to choose one of those two paths, let's say it's this path here, and block the other one. Okay. So, and that would occur, let's say if we had an Ethernet hub here, an old hub here that somebody threw in, then the path to, say, from computer D here would go this way here through switch 2, through switch 1, and out to switch A. But computer C here, this port is blocked, as we can see here, blocked, right? So it's going to take this path here to A. All right, so you'll understand more of this as we get into spanning tree. One thing I want to mention is redundancy is a good thing, because let's say this is the port that is blocked by spanning tree, because we only want one path. I'm going to see in a later video why we only want one path, or we're going to create a big problem in our network. It'll actually bring down the network if we have redundant paths in our layer 2 network. But let's say this is the path, the link blocked by spanning tree, so we don't have a loop. Let's say all of a sudden this link goes down. Well, spanning tree will actually reconverge and then go ahead and make this a forwarding port. Okay. So that's one of the advantages of spanning tree, is that it is also self-healing. Not only blocks loops, but it's also self-healing. Okay. Sorry if I got some background noise here. Somebody's doing some work here. Anyway, I want to mention one of my personal heroes, and that's Rati Perlman, excuse me, who is the developer of Spanning Tree. She's also developed things like the ISIS routing protocols and many other things. Fascinating person, fascinating speaker, very, very intelligent, obviously, and has written several books. Matter of fact, I learned a lot of my networking from one of her books called Interconnections. And there's a great podcast series called The Network Collective that I really encourage you to look at. So at some point in your network and education network career. But here's one they did on the history of networking, a series they do with the history of networking. And they interview Rati Perlman. Very, very interesting. You can see they're all smiling there because she's actually a very funny, entertaining person. And she actually wrote this algorithm over a weekend, believe it or not. All right, so that's the an introduction to Spanning Tree. We're going to learn a whole lot more about Spanning Tree in upcoming videos. So stay tuned, and we'll clarify a lot of cool stuff, and you'll learn a lot of cool stuff.